Welcome back to Steffi Fan's channel. Today we will learn about the shocking developments surrounding Electra Forster's growing suspicions and Deke's sharp, unexpected rise in the fashion world that promises to shake the foundations of Forster Creations and forever change the landscape of Los Angeles' elite fashion scene. Electra senses danger from Dylan. Electra Forster is facing an increasingly unsettling feeling every time Dylan appears within her sight. This mysterious art teacher seems to always be present in places where Electra and Will frequently visit, from their favorite coffee shop in Melrose Avenue, on the park where they usually take evening strolls, and even at the local bookstore where Electra browses fashion magazines. This coincidence is no longer random, but has become a concerning pattern that Electra cannot ignore. She begins documenting each chance encounter in a private journal, noting the dates, times, and exact locations where Dylan mysteriously appeared. When piecing the fragments together, a haunting picture emerges before her eyes. Dylan has been systematically tracking their movement for weeks, possibly even months. Luna's death under tragic circumstances was concluded by police as an unfortunate accident, a simple slip and fall that resulted in fatal injuries. But Electra's strong intuition cannot accept this simple explanation, especially after discovering certain inconsistencies in the official report. She recalls small details that everyone else seemed to overlook. Luna had whispered to her about someone following her before the accident occurred, mentioning a shadowy figure she kept seeing outside her apartment. Luna's fear-filled eyes in her final days haunt Electra's dreams, and most importantly, Dylan had also been acquaintance of Luna before she met her fate. In fact, Electra discovered through social media posts that Dylan had been giving Luna private art lessons just 2 weeks before her death. These fragments keep circling in Electra's mind, causing her many sleepless nights, and she becomes increasingly convinced that there is a dark conspiracy unfolding, and she is gradually lifting the veil of secrecy. She even considers hiring a private investigator, but fears that such an action might alert Dylan to her suspicions. The haunting encounter at the coffee shop. One particularly sunny afternoon, Electra stopped by her familiar coffee shop to regain her composure after days filled with tension and anxiety. The cozy establishment had always been her sanctuary, a place where she could think clearly and find peace. Unexpectedly, Dylan was also there, sitting in a far corner with a cup of coffee that had gone cold on the table, his sketchbook open but untouched. His presence felt deliberate, calculated, as if he had been waiting specifically for her arrival. When their eyes met, Electra felt a cold shiver run down her spine, despite the warm California sunshine streaming through the windows. Dylan's eyes were not the friendly gaze of a normal art teacher, but instead a cold, penetrating look as if measuring and calculating the next move. The half smile that appeared on Dylan's face made Electra shudder. It was not a friendly smile, but one full of calculation, as if he was savoring every moment of her unease and feeding off her discomfort. Electra tried to remain calm, ordering her usual cappuccino with trembling hands, but her hands continued to shake as she held her coffee cup. The barista noticed her distress but said nothing, simply offering a concerned glance. Dylan slowly stood up and approached with unsettling grace, his movements predatory, yet somehow maintaining a veneer of casual friendliness. His voice was sweet but contained something terrifying beneath the polite exterior, like honey laced with poison. He inquired about Will in excessive detail, asking about his new project at work, his gym schedule, even his favorite late-night haunts, knowing Will's daily schedule to an extent that horrified Electra. How could he possibly know that Will had started going to a new gym 3 blocks away, or that he recently changed his lunch routine? Dylan even mentioned the specific restaurant where Will had dinner reservations for Friday night, information that Electra herself had only learned that morning. After Dylan left, departing with a final lingering glance that felt like a threat, Electra sat there in silence for nearly 20 minutes. Her hands still trembled, her coffee grew cold untouched, and only one thought remained in her mind: she must find a way to protect Will before it's too late. But how could she convince Will when all she had was intuition and fragile evidence? She pulled out her phone multiple times to call to him, but each time she hesitated, knowing his likely response. The weight of her knowledge and the burden of being unable to share it felt crushing. Will's disbelief and Dylan's divide-and-conquer plan. When Electra finally mustered the courage to try sharing her concerns and dangerous feelings about Dylan with Will that evening over, in dinner at their apartment, she didn't expect his reaction to be completely opposite to her expectations. She had prepared her words carefully, trying to present her observations as factually as possible without sounding paranoid. Will, with doubtful eyes and a harsh voice that cut through her like ice, believed that Electra was showing baseless jealousy and deliberately trying to start a conflict with Dylan simply because he was an ass now. Attractive man who appeared in their lives. Will argued that Dylan was just a gentle art teacher, always friendly and polite to everyone. Someone who had been nothing but supportive and kind since they first met. He reminded Electra that Dylan had even helped him with advice about an art piece he wanted to commission for his office. Electra's constant suspicion of him, Will insisted, only showed she lacked trust in their relationship and perhaps had deeper insecurity issues she needed to address. The accusations of jealousy from Will felt like knives stabbing repeatedly into Electra's heart. She felt deeply wounded when the person she loved most didn't trust her intuition and genuine concerns for his safety. The distance between Electra and Will grew wider with each heated argument, and every time she tried to warn him about Dylan's true nature, only pushed Will further away from her embrace. Their conversations became tense, their once easy affection replaced by awkward silences and suspicious glances. Will started spending more time away from the apartment, claiming he needed space to think, which only increased Electra's anxiety about his vulnerability to Dylan's manipulation. What neither of them realized was that this was exactly the divide-and-conquer plan that Dylan had been subtly sowing for a long time, planting seeds of discord with expert precision. With sophisticated calculation and psychological manipulation worthy of a master strategist, Dylan had cleverly created situations that made Electra appear like a jealous and irrational person, while he maintained the image of a perfect man in Will's eyes, supportive, understanding, and unfairly accused. Dylan would send thoughtful text messages to Will during their arguments, offering a listening ear and subtly reinforcing the narrative that Electra was being unreasonable. He positioned himself as the voice of reason, the trusted friend who only wanted the best for Will. Each time Electra tried to expose Dylan's true nature, she pushed Will one step further away. And Dylan was gradually taking her place in Will's life, becoming the confidant and companion that she used to be. Deke Sharp and the pain from Steffi's mockery. Deke Sharp, a young man working as a waiter at Il Giardino, the prestigious Italian restaurant frequented by Los Angeles' fashion elite, always carried a burning dream of becoming a fashion designer that consumed his every waking thought. He had spent years researching fashion trends, studying the works of legendary designers, from Coco Chanel to Alexander McQueen, teaching himself how to sketch designs through YouTube tutorials and library books, and even saving every penny from his meager tips to buy fashion books and magazines. His small apartment was covered wall-to-wall with sketches, fabric swatches, and inspiration boards that he worked on obsessively after his long shifts. However, his dream was shattered in a single cruel moment when Steffi Forrester, the princess of the Forrester Creations empire and fashion, royalty personified, accidentally overheard him sharing his ambitions with a colleague during a rare quiet moment at the restaurant. Steffi's mockery was nothing less than a slap in Deke's face, delivered with the casual cruelty of someone who had never known struggle, a waiter daring to dream of doing fashion. How ridiculous. Stick to serving pasta, honey. She had laughed her companions, joining in the mockery, making Deke feel like he was 2 inches tall. The entire exchange lasted maybe 30 seconds, but those 30 seconds would change everything. The condescending tone, the dismissive wave of her perfectly manicured hand, the way she didn't even bother to lower her voice, all of it burned into Deke's memory. Those harsh words echoed in Deke's head for many days and nights afterward. His self-esteem was deeply wounded, not only because of the contempt in Steffi's tone, but also because of her dismissive gaze toward people not born into wealth and power, people who had to work for every opportunity. That night, Deke sat in his small room with tears streaming down his face and surging anger filling his chest. But he didn't let himself collapse into despair. Instead, after the tears dried, those words ignited a fierce flame of determination within him. He would prove to the world that talent doesn't discriminate by origin, that creativity isn't reserved for those with trust funds and family connections, and that Steffi Forrester was catastrophically wrong to underestimate him. He made himself a promise. In the darkness of that night, he would make Steffi Forrester regret every word she had said. Long nights and bold sketches. From that night onward, Deke began a revolution in his life that would consume him completely. He stayed up all night for many consecutive days, sometimes until sunrise, painted his windows gold, his hand never leaving the drawing pen and sketch paper. He survived on coffee and determination, his restaurant shifts feeling like obstacles to overcome before he could return to his true work. Each stroke of his pen contained intense emotions, anger at the injustice, determination to succeed against all odds, and the burning desire to prove himself worthy. Deke's designs were not safe in traditional fashion pieces that would blend into the background of a runway show, but instead bold creations that broke all rules and boundaries established by the fashion establishment. He combined unexpected materials, industrial mesh, with delicate silk weather denim with luxurious cashmere, streetwear elements with haute couture construction. He created powerful cuts that challenged conventional notions of silhouette and form, and used colors in ways no one had ever thought of in haute couture, clashing neons with earth tones, metallics with pastels, creating visual stories that demanded attention. In those sketches, one could feel the raw story of a young man who had been scorned but rose stronger than ever before, channeling his pain into something beautiful and revolutionary. Each design carried a powerful message that beauty can come from the most unexpected places, that struggle creates authentic art, and that creativity is not limited by social status or family name. Deke didn't stop working even when exhaustion made his vision blur. His eyes red from lack of sleep, but the light in them brighter than ever before. He filled 3 complete sketchbooks in just 2 weeks, each one better than the last, his vision becoming clearer and more refined with each passing night. He knew this was his only chance to change his destiny, perhaps his only shot at proving he belonged in the world that had rejected him. And he wasn't going to let it slip away regardless of how many sleepless nights it required. Katie discovers the rough diamond. With fierce determination burning in his eyes and his best sketches carefully organized in a leather portfolio he had splurged on, Deke brought his work to meet Katie Logan, someone with great influence in the fashion industry and, more importantly, someone with an irreconcilable feud with the Forresters that was well known throughout the industry. Katie initially agreed to meet Deke only out of kindness and curiosity, thinking this was just another young man with unrealistic dreams about fashion. Another hopeful who didn't understand how brutal and exclusive the fashion world could be. She had seen hundreds of portfolios over her career, most of them forgettable, competent at best. But as she began reviewing the sketches in her elegant office, her eyes gradually changed from polite indifference to genuine surprise, and finally to utter amazement that she couldn't hide. Katie couldn't believe her eyes. Before her were not amateur sketches or derivative copies of existing trends, but true works of art that spoke with an original voice. She immediately recognized that Deke had a unique and bold vision that even veteran designers with decades of experience would struggle to match or replicate. His designs were not only beautiful in their execution but revolutionary in their concept, capable of reshaping future fashion trends and challenging the current industry hierarchy. The technical skill was impressive, but what truly captured Katie's attention was the emotional depth in every piece. You could feel the story, the struggle, the triumph in each sketch. Katie, with her years of industry experience and her keen eye for emerging talent, knew she was looking at a rough diamond, a massive hidden talent that only needed proper polishing guidance, and the right platform to shine brilliantly and potentially change the fashion